Why we had to leave our beautiful house after 17 years. The house I grew up in was about 100 years old by the time my parents bought it. I lived there until I was 17. For as long as I can remember, I saw what I described as a girl who was pink and see-through. I always called her Pam. It's been 13 years since I left that house, and I still remember her vividly. My dad got a bit weirded out when I talked about Pam, and finally, when I was 14, my mom put me in therapy because Pam was still something I brought up regularly. To stop my parents from thinking I was crazy, I just stopped talking about Pam completely and went on with my life. Things were manageable until my parents decided to sell the house when I was 16. Just 2 weeks before moving into our new house, I was sleeping, but was woken up by Pam standing in my doorway and pointing into the bathroom directly across the hall. All Pam said was, Look, my mom. When I looked to see whom she was pointing at, I saw a woman hanging by a cord from the bathroom's light fixture. I remember the woman looked as though she had been hanging there for a while, when all of a sudden, the woman's boot fell off, and I abruptly woke up. I ran into my parents' room to tell them what happened, and my mom looked at me disappointed because I was talking about Pam again after having kept quiet about her for years. I concluded that it was just a bad dream and went back to bed with no other incidents. Until a few days later, I was once again asleep, dreaming that I was woken up by crying coming from the bathroom across the hall. I got out of bed and walked over to see what was going on. At that point, I saw the same woman who was hanging from the bathroom light fixture, sobbing and holding a very real little girl under the water in the bathtub. It was then that I realized that the little girl was the little pink, see-through girl I had seen my entire life. It was Pam, and she was not moving. I immediately woke up crying uncontrollably. I was 16 years old and ran into my parents' room like a 5-year-old, jumping into bed with my mom. My dad was working at the time. I told my mom what had happened, and she could see how upset I was and was trying to calm me down. At that same moment, the pink and transparent version of Pam walked through the door. I looked at my mom and just whispered, "Oh my God, Mom." She's in here, pulling the covers up to my neck and looking at her terrified. My mom was speechless. At that point, Pam slowly climbed up the side of the bed and began pushing me into my mom. I had never been touched by Pam before. I was screaming and crying, repeatedly yelling, "Stop touching me!" All my mom could reply was, "I'm not touching you!" as she was being pushed out of the other side of the bed. After what seemed like forever, Pam stopped and slowly walked out of the room. I cried myself to sleep, while my mom stayed awake to see what else might happen. I never spent another night in that house. But 2 weeks after we moved out completely, the house caught fire. The entire backside and the garage burned down. The official cause was spontaneous combustion. The house my family lived in for 25 years has since been bought and sold 8 times in 10 years. No one wants to stay in that house, and I really think that Pam is the reason why.